All right, lads, how's things? We're back in for another week. Myself, Enda Varley, and Steven Poacher here. We're just going to do a review of the weekend games. Um, Division One, I suppose, heavily focused from the televised games, the likes of Mayo, Armagh, Monaghan and Kerry, Galway, Roscommon. Sebo was at Derry and Louth and down in Antrim. So they're the games we're going to review. And then we just touch on some of the young lads that are going well to look out for. I suppose on the other side of the coin, then you have the old fellas that are still going strong and how they're kind of balance football and life, being an intercounty player. So first of all, Stevie, I suppose the weekend games. What's your overall view with it, or what you think?
Yeah, and listen, good to be back. Good to see you again. The weekend games. I suppose one of the biggest shocks of the weekend was your old mate Davy. Roscommon beating Galway in Salt Hill. I think we sort of
The
questioned.
classic, the classic.
Yeah, a classic. Jesus, if I had been involved in a game like that, boy, there'd have been people falling on the head. There'd have been wanted signs and everything out there on Twitter, like wanted for crimes against football. But no, listen, a win's a win, and that's what
Yeah,
football at the highest level. That's the business that those guys are in. But look, and I don't think there's any real shocks. I did feel Tyrone were going to beat Donegal. I really did. I think there was going to be a reaction in Tyrone. I seen that coming. Armagh Mayo was a 50-50 game and a draw. I know draws are obscure in Gaelic, but it wasn't a surprise.
yeah,
Particularly in the athletic ground, such a hard place to come to. Kerry beating Monaghan, no surprise whatsoever. Cork beating Kildare in Division Two, maybe a wee bit of a surprise considering Kildare's
yeah,
performance against Dublin, and
yeah,
maybe it's an indictment maybe of how far Dublin have fallen. I don't want to press that button too soon, but
yeah,
they weren't overly impressive in the second half either end against Limerick. Got into Division Three. My own county made it 2 from 2. Wasn't surprising, although they made very hard work of it. Cavan seemed to be going really well in 3 as well. And then in Division 4, Laois have hit rock bottom, but I think Laois sort of need to go to 4 to rebuild again. Seems to be the sort of pattern of their development over the last number of years. So Laois seem to be the front runners, along with your old comrade Andy in Leitrim, which is great to see. Andy seems to be
going
a nice
well.
guy.
Yeah, going well.
Spoke to him a few times then on the phone regarding coaching. Seems a
Yeah,
really nice fella. I'm sure he was a brilliant teammate. You could probably expand on that, but yeah, it's brilliant to see him doing well. Brilliant to see him doing
no,
well.
fanatical. I actually Luke Bree used to coach us with Vincent, and he's actually one of the coaches now in with Leitrim. And just chatting to him about it, obviously very positive. He's hardly going to slate the setup, but he's obviously very positive about the whole thing.
Brilliant.
Just I suppose talk. Look at you from you talking to Andy on the phone, and obviously being teammates with them for a good few years. Yeah, just his enthusiasm would rub off on the players. His knowledge of the game is very high, and his work ethic. He's really engrossed himself into Leitrim, and
Yeah,
that's the one point that Luke actually said to me that he just couldn't get over how kind of intense in terms of that
yeah,
passion is he has for Leitrim football. So
yeah.
look, it's nice to see because I think Leitrim could come up this year. To be honest, from Division Four, it'd
Listen,
be
Andy, and it's a year two thing. Like funny, it was the conversation I had with Andy at the time. I was actually asking him to do the coaching day in school. He was actually going to come down and do it, and just something came up with work or whatever, and he couldn't get down. But he chatted about that year two syndrome. What,
yeah,
like, was he going to get the bounce? It was his first sort of gig that he went into year two, and I've sort of explained to him that if you actually go through a lot, even my own experience, actually, a year two always seems to be a better year than year one
yes,
because year one you're installing your ideas, year two you're building on them, and
yeah,
it's maybe a podcast on its own about how management and coaching the impact you have in year one in comparison to year two, and then is year three a year too far, or how do you know when you've done too much? It's coaching football. Funny, I was having this conversation today. It's a very fickle game, and you know yourself. You 1 minute you're everybody's fan, and then the next minute, you're in the mud, and that's unfortunately life and football. It's a fickle environment.
my personal opinion on that city would be year. I think 4 years is a natural cycle of any management team, especially if you don't win anything. And if you
Yeah,
win something, yeah, you're right. Year two is always year one. You're installing your ideas. Year two, the players like the players know you better, obviously, and you get to know the players a lot more in terms of their
Mm.
strengths and weaknesses and how to get a certain lad going, how to I don't know, another lad might be a different sort of character. So it's you're, I 100% agree with you in terms of year two is where you kind of cement your foundation in terms of what you've made in year one, and hopefully, well, especially with Leitrim's case and Andy's case, that if they did get promoted from Division Four, it would obviously give the whole county a big lift, and you can hopefully kick on from there. Like so, especially for the
Yeah.
championship come the few months time.
And then when you were playing as a
Yeah.
player, did you find when a management team creeped into year three, was there a bit of staleness? Was there, or did was there had to be the fresh in some capacity, or how did you find that? Like,
I found, I suppose, with James's first stint at Mayo, I found, in fairness to him, I think it's very important to change up the backroom team because you know yourself,
yeah, yeah,
you have the head, the key figure there is obviously the manager, and James is obviously the
mhm,
key figure there. But he did change up, especially your trainer or coach would be obviously one of the main voices you'd be listening to. I suppose in year one in 2011 we had. Um, Martin Conley and Paul Jordan, they were called, and then Keane O'Neill came in 2012. Donny Buckley
mhm,
came down in 13. So it gave us that bounce from each year, and especially in 11 you got to an all semi final from where we were in 10. 10 we got fucking knocked out in the qualifiers in round one. I don't know, it was a disaster. 11 we got to an all semi final. 12 you got to an all final, and then that belief is like we're nearly there, and you kind of hope you push on again. Like so that we kind of bounced in. And then 2014, I suppose, Stephen, to be honest, we were at a really good age bracket where we're all in our kind of early to mid 20s,
yeah,
and you're trying to get over that final hurdle, and that hunger
mhm,
is still there until you bloody do it. Like so,
mhm,
you're going to invest, and especially the squad of players that we had at the time, are very committed in terms of you're going to do anything that you need to try and get yourself right for the off season and get your body right. Whatever you have to do, you probably do it. Like so,
yeah.
uh, that's yeah. I don't have an answer to your question there now yet. To be honest,
But the
it's look
backroom
at every
team, the backroom team obviously helped in that sort of fresh face coming in every year gave you the sort of the fresh impetus in that to sort of kick on a bit more, didn't it? Like,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
like obviously you've gone through the Carlow and Roscommon gigs and other management gigs. Like I don't know, like obviously by saying that you kind of gotta. Do you get a sense yourself after a certain amount of time? You're like, I need to change something here, or I need to go.
yeah, I think you do. I think you do. I think you sort of you know when your voice become well. It's about delivering the same message, but maybe delivering it with a different voice or a different angle or something like that. And obviously I've probably been very fortunate in managing. I suppose at even a club level where I've always had a huge variety of people that I've worked with, and I've never really sort of kept the same management team. Like, it's probably why I have probably so much admiration and respect for the likes of Malachi Rourke, for example, who himself and Ryan Porter would have spent 6 years with Monaghan and probably would have squeezed the absolute daylights out of them, and listen, Mickey Hart, another man with great longevity. But I'll tell you what, Enda, I think the way the game's going and the intensity of intercounty level management, I honestly don't. I think those days are gone of like 6, 7, 8, 9 year
Yeah,
spells. Colin Collins
unless
is
you're
obviously
winning.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And Colin Collins is obviously unique in the fact that he's a clear man. He's doing it for the right reasons. The players all love him. He's obviously got a real sort of affectionate personality. He obviously does a lot for the players outside of football as well. And I
yeah.
know from listening to the likes of Tubbs and those guys, like they obviously have huge admiration and respect for him. But I think those days are gone, and I think we're now in a cycle of nearly like Premiership, where
Yeah.
if you're not winning 2 years, you're gone. And that's
Would you go as
unfortunate.
far as 2 years? Would you go as far as 2 years?
I would say if there's no progress and in two
Yeah.
years, I'd say people are starting to ask questions because and you've got to remember even those people that are managing their own county now are getting well paid, and with payment comes pressure, and with pressure
Competition.
comes a demand for results, and particularly
Yeah.
within the GA public, the supporters, and another thing too, and which I think has become so toxic now as well. And yourself, like listen. it's the cynics on social media and the barstool brigade that are waiting in the wings for you, waiting for you to fall and waiting for you to fail, and that brings the pressure itself as well, so that can all add into the whole pressure of it. But it's a full-time job now, isn't it? I think it's a 30 plus hour week. It really is. It really is, with planning, prep, phone calls, the delivery of the session, the meetings. It's 30 plus hours, you
On
know.
about the social media abuse, Kieran McGee's wife couldn't go to, or family couldn't go to games in the last few years from such abuse. And I know obviously James Horn's side, his family, letters, posts coming to the house, family getting abused, outside of the house. It's just sometimes you kind of think, what the hell is
Yeah.
going on here?
I can listen here. I've had my fair share of it as well. Like, obviously your perceived coaching style and your perceived style of play and stuff. People on the outside that sort of poke fun at you and stuff. Look, I had it on a smaller scale there too. And like, actually, the wee girl and the wife was at a match there recently, a club match I was involved in. Like, and there was a bit of abuse being fired from a committee member of another club. Like, but look, without getting into detail, like, the wee girl actually turned around and said to him, how would you like someone saying that, or how would you like your girls to hear someone saying that about you, and stuff like that. And like, that's why it sort of matches. I tend to sort of, you don't be critical, because the person sitting
Yeah.
in front of you is maybe roaring and squealing at you, or roaring and squealing about a certain player. It could be his brother or his sister or his family sitting in front of them or beside them. You know what it is? It's very unfair. It's very, very unfair, because at the end of the day, ultimately, okay, coaches and managers and physios and S&C men get paid, but the players don't. And those are the lads that are putting the shift in and putting the effort in. So that's why I have huge respect for the county players there too. It's because it's a big ask now, and we're talking
It's
about. We're obviously going to talk about older players. Like, how many players are playing now at inter-county level that have families and stuff. We're going to talk about, and it's there's not too many. Like, there's not too many.
I just well, I was racking my brain before I came onto this. Like, I actually,
Yeah,
the only lad I can think of was Dean Rock, obviously from
right.
Dublin. He's a little one. I think it was a little girl, was it? Before Christmas. I just saw it on social media. Like, but like, with that, his day to day now is going to change. Obviously. No, I suppose the two of us know we both kids, like, and I can certainly
Yeah,
tell you my life definitely changed in the last 3 years,
yeah,
in terms of if I just couldn't imagine trying to play intercounty football while trying to manage kids along with that, as in, like, I remember an article being put out, which we say the likes of Tom Brady, the NFL quarterback, saying
yeah,
he goes to bed every night at 8:30, and I'm just kind of thinking, yeah, that's all right for you, because you're obviously a professional athlete. You go training in the morning time, but
yeah,
as the intercounty players, evening time, you get home at 10:30. Could be 11 o'clock back in bloody, when we were in Dublin. I was getting home at 1 o'clock, like, but
yeah,
like that recovery is just gone. And you're up for work the next day. Trying to get a gym session in that night, trying to, obviously the burden on your partner is going to be
huge.
huge, and
Yeah,
that's going to put extra stress and pressure on you, because obviously you're feeling bad, because you're obviously leaving the house all the time. It's a huge sacrifice, and especially, as you said, you're not getting paid. There's no there's no financial reward here, and you're it's a part of your life. It's definitely, it consumes you, as you said. 30 plus hours for management. I'm not going to say it's 30 plus hours for players, but it's definitely consumes you in terms of your lifestyle and your capabilities of doing something outside of football. So,
yeah.
like,
It'd be interesting actually to see the age profile of most squads. It would be, the way, obviously, you see it's very accessible to see the Premiership. Looking at Liverpool's age profile, Man United, whatever. It'd be
yeah,
interesting to see the age profile of each county. I know Niall Morgan, for example, I play a bit of golf with Niall there over the summer and stuff. Like,
yeah.
Niall's obviously got children. He's a principal of a school as well. So, like, it's a huge demand. Like, it's a huge demand. He's coming home in the evenings, obviously, with the stress of school, and then obviously his own family and stuff, and obviously the high expectations in Tyrone as well to be successful. So it's not easy. It's not easy. It probably takes a lot of time management and a lot of sort of life work balance, as well.
And what age is Niall? Is Niall over 30 now?
Niall would be, well, yeah, probably come back now to 21, I would say 2011. Yeah, he's around about 31ish, 32. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, and does he ever say much about it? Like, does he say, "Geez, this is tough here. This is you know."
Seems to enjoy it. Seems to enjoy it.
Does he?
Yeah, he's not playing much golf so long. May that continue. So I'll take a few pound off him. This summer when we're playing, so need to be playing a bit more myself actually before playing. But no, listen, it's like anything, I suppose being a teacher probably gives you that flexibility in the summer, maybe, having that
Yeah,
summer off. And although the
yeah,
inter-county season now has condensed a little bit, but it does give you, the wee bit of time. And like most lads maybe traveling from Dublin or whatever, like those, put it like this, those lads working in building sites, those days are gone. A lad working in a
yeah.
building site from 7 in the morning to 6 at night, those days are gone. You can't do it. You can't do it. You simply could not play inter county football being in the trenches during the day. Like you couldn't, and that's the reality.
That no, 100% agree. No, there's definitely. I remember. Look at this is obviously going back probably 15 years ago now. But I'd love to see the kind of, as you said, as the jobs, the average guy, the jobs they'd had
Yeah,
back 15 years ago compared to now. The majority of the jobs they'd had back 15 years ago, I can guarantee, has dramatically changed what it is now. As you said there, just physically, you just wouldn't be able to do it, Stevie. In terms of
no,
recovery, you'd
no,
be absolutely. I remember, like, Jesus, you'd be coming off 2 hour sessions and you'd be
yeah,
absolutely crippled the next day. And then you're trying
yeah,
to trying to do a full day's labor on site. Like,
yeah,
this, not, something would obviously have to give. And, your intercounty, just
mm,
your playing, your capability of playing at a high level would just obviously drop a
yeah,
lot. Like so, we're just talking about the young lads, Steve, in terms of the structures in place for teams. Like when I suppose I was thinking about this as well. When young lads come into a setup, like there's obviously development squads and I suppose you give them a taste. Like remember, James actually Horn was on an interview when on about Lee Keegan back in 11. Actually, he didn't make a minor team. He didn't play the under 21s, and I thought it's something James did really well in terms of introducing lads, young lads, giving them a taste of it, and then he'd see right, this lad's got a taste here. Has he the drive now to really grab it and let's see what you have here. So like Lee, as he said himself, he came back. He came on against Kerry in the All Ireland semi final for literally 5 minutes. I'd say kicked an outside the boot spinner, and he came back that winter. The end of 11, obviously the start of 12, and he was like a man possessed in terms of not just the fitness. He said about the fitness test, and I actually remember this the fitness test we did, and it actually took Lee 5 minutes to get off the floor. He was that exhausted after the fitness test. I don't know what it was. It could be a beep test or yo-yo test, whatever it is.
mhm,
But like you could just see the lad absolutely was physically out on his feet, and he was literally saying to the management team, right, I'm basically going to do whatever it takes here now to make a go or try and make this team here, and he's
yeah,
putting down a marker here. So it was just um, I just thought it was a really good example. I just thinking
yeah.
back on young lads bursting onto the scene and trying to nail down that starting spot, because it is tough, like getting into a setup from the off.
I think what probably helps now and is like the setups of most development squads and minor teams now, under 17 panels and under 20 panels. Like most panels now and they have, an S&C coach, they have a football coach, they have a physio. The young lads now are probably what I would probably call are well educated and they're well educated before they come to senior level, whereas before, as go back 20 years, we were having this conversation in the PE staff room the other day. Actually, there's a number of young lads in our staff room are still playing.
Yeah,
Obviously, geez, I'm 44 this year, like so it's a long time since I played. But we were saying, like, say when 20 years ago when I was in my mid 20s, you never had S&C advice. You never had
no,
any guidance on nutrition. Sure, now you just flick on the internet. You've got so much. You've got a world of information, maybe too much, but certainly in the representative squads that young lads are in now, there's great guidance. There's a great pathway. That's probably the right word. There's a right pathway. But funny, interesting conversation. Go back about 8 years ago. A lovely man called Michael Fanning from the Scaries Club in Dublin invited me down at Easter to do an Easter camp.
yeah,
And at the Easter camp, Lindsay Davy was there. She was the Dublin ladies captain. Lindsay actually retired there, I think, last year.
mm,
Brilliant footballer of Dublin ladies. And Johnny Cooper was the other coach. So just at lunchtime came, and, I'm baiting into the buns and the ham sandwiches and the tea, and And Cooper's away into the boot of the car, and he's pulling out like a sort of a homemade omelette and stuff. And I'm looking at him going like, this is different level, the way, the
Yeah.
preparation. But I just chatted him briefly, like, and Johnny was obviously a fantastic footballer, like, and I just talked to him about the Dublin setup briefly. And obviously they don't give too much away, and as you know, and probably still don't give too much away. But he just said to me, he says, what drives us on is that if I'm not doing it, there's somebody else coming along who's ready to do it. And if they're not doing it, there's also somebody else to replace them. The competition and the thirst and the hunger. And that's something that we talked about Roscommon there last week. And funny, I was just chatting to a fella from Armagh there just briefly today about Armagh and Roscommon. I was saying, like, the big difference this year with Roscommon probably is that they've brought in the likes of Ben O'Carroll, Dara Craig, Colin Walsh came on a sub at the weekend as well. I noticed Colin was fullback in that under-20 team. The young goalkeeper, the new lad, name's gone out of my head now. He's replaced Colin Lavin. Connor Carl, they called him. Connor's come in as well, a young fella in nets. They have introduced some really, really good young talent. And what that's probably done, Enda, in a roundabout way, is give the likes of Cox and Kieran Murda and Damard and Enda and Tony, these guys, it's probably give them a wee kick, to say, fuck, I need to push on here. I need to keep on top of my game. And those lads, the Murders and the Smiths and stuff, those established players, they're driving the younger lads on in, because the younger lads are saying, well, I want a piece of this, and that's healthy for a squad. That's healthy for a squad, as you know, a bit like your Lee Keane story there. I want a piece of that. I want to be in that, and that's
when Dublin were at their pomp in terms of, they did have that second 15, and you soon kind of saw when I suppose the last 2 years when the squad wasn't there, it's like a virus coming into your team, as you said there. If the mainstays get comfortable, well then the performance it doesn't mix, as in terms of that high level, in terms of Dublin didn't win 6 in a row for no reason. It's their second 15 that really, as Johnny Cooper said there, like that's that drove them on. Exactly, drove his standards on. So it's a fine line. Like, it's just getting back to that in terms of the young lads coming through. Like, I wonder, like, I know, look, obviously it's 10 years since I was there, like, but like the S&C coaches, like, I wonder, do they touch base with the young lads through the winter? Do they give them specialized programs, or what's going on there? Because obviously, look at, as you said there, back in 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, like, I know myself, like, I was. The only reason I kind of knew anything about the gym was through one of my mates. Like, he did sports science in UL, and we were lifting together. Like, so that was the only reason. And with Mayo at the time, like, it was alien. Like, we'll say I was probably 10.5 stone. I came up to 12.5 stone because of my mate, like, and it was nothing to do with the Mayo setup. Like, so I'm just wondering, do young lads now have that contact with the S&C? As in, like, I don't judge a good S&C coach by getting the likes of, I don't know, Lee Keegan up to standard. I judge them by the kind of lesser guys. Like, do they take them out for the first couple of months through the winter and give, just gym, as in, you have to put on a stone here, or you have to, do you know what I mean? Like, I wonder, is that happening?
Oh, it is, and I know there's a lot of awful, really good work. Like, funny, like, I just even thinking back to even the club, for example, even our club structure. Like, we've been very lucky to appoint a really, really brilliant S&C coach who was over the academies in Derry for a long time. John McMahon, he's brilliant S&C coach. Like, and we've John in there. John's whole philosophy and John's whole mantra, ended to me, is that he's trying to educate the young lads. It's an education rather than it's more so a physical thing, that there's longevity and there's a culture in it that, it becomes second nature to them, that they understand what they're doing, they understand what the gym is for, they understand what is in the gym. Like, there's so many fads out there now too as well. There's so much Instagram and social media, and get fit in 6 weeks and lose weight in 5 weeks and all this nonsense. Like, but it's about creating a lifestyle and a culture and a longevity in these young lads, so it becomes second nature to them, Andy. And I think, like, just look, I'm only speaking from the likes of Benny there, who's over the our minors at the minute, Benny Calder. Like, Benny would have a good structure in place there at underage level. The young lads are getting well educated. They have an S&C coach on board. They'll be getting the guidance. Now, they may not make massive gains from 15 to 17, but at least they're getting that foundation and that education into that when they do come to university, that they're well educated. They're not going into a gym looking at dumbbells going, what do I do here? What's a
Yeah.
deadlift? What's a squat? Like every young lad now knows what a deadlift is, what a squat is, what a bench press is. They know how to lunge. They know how to side lunge. They know everything now. They're actually probably more educated now than we ever were. And that's obviously going to create obviously a much better pathway physically for them when they go into senior level. But it is a big jump up. It is a big jump up.
Yeah.
You're talking about young lads coming through. There's very few of them that are coming through. Like I was looking at those Roscommon lads, for example, and I look at the likes of just for talk's sake, I think of Con, I think of Con in Dublin, who else I'm thinking of over the last
Unless
number of years.
unless unless Stephen, you're a generational talent, you're not going to be a good senior until you're
Yeah,
22, 23
yeah.
years of
But
age.
even but
Simple as
even
that.
Con O'Callaghan in there, even Con O'Callaghan, the difference is I would love to dig it out, and there's a picture of Con O'Callaghan at 19 when he
Yeah.
first came on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
panel, and a picture at
Yeah.
20.
Yeah.
It's like a different animal. It's like a different
Yeah.
animal altogether. He's just like a
Yeah.
beast. And I think Roscommon did a lot of work on S&C with those lads. Those lads like Dara Craig, Carr, and those lads. Because Colin Walsh was always a big and strong athletic fella and stuff like that. Keith Dougie, but those lads have obviously, they've ingrained the culture. And the other thing had to do, and it's not a bad thing. I'm not giving off about it, but very few lads drink now. It's all coffees and protein shakes and stuff. And you go after games, like you go to our games on a Friday night, even in club games now, and very few young lads go into the club together and have pints. It's all like recover, recover, recover. And it's not a bad thing either. But I think Brawley had an article about the Sigerson. Joe had an article about the Sigerson. He talked about when they went down to Dublin and I think they ended up in a boat or something somewhere in the middle of the lift. And a few pints. And like the Sigerson teams now don't even drink. Because it's
Um,
recovered for. And the whole point of Sigerson was university, togetherness, bit of
yeah.
crack, few beers, on the road, and that's,
But that
unfortunately.
getting on that, Stephen, like what, like again, the scheduling with the GA in terms of someone I saw that on social media today actually that they're obviously giving out like there's no crack in it, especially this time of year, because if you're playing for the county, you're covering for the college game on the Tuesday,
Yeah,
and then after the college game, you're covering for the county game on the fucking weekend. Like, so, as you said there, where's the crack in terms of these competitions at the start of the year, especially for intercounty, are they sustainable or are they worthwhile in your opinion?
I think maybe pre-Christmas, and I know somebody was saying like there's never going to be a perfect time in it. There's never going to be a perfect time, but if you ran the Sigerson off pre-Christmas and maybe held the final week before Christmas or something like that. Now people are saying, oh, it's going to coincide with the provincial club championships, but really and truly, it's going to affect a very very small pool of players because there's only going to be two clubs involved in the provincial final at that stage. Provincial finals are the start of December, so you do have that 2-3 week window as well to run it off. And the old Sigerson structure, as was, that Sigerson weekend was mad because you played maybe a quarter final on the Thursday,
Yeah,
a semi final on the Friday, and maybe a final on the Saturday. And look, from player welfare perspective, it was probably madness. Like, but it was part of the fun of it as well. It was part of the mystique of it. Now, you tend to have the universities that have the best pick are going to always be the top. It's nearly like it's become a bit sterile now because those are the best players are going to be because there's no luck involved anymore. There's no. It used to be a team that went down and they put it against a team that went down with a great spirit, a great togetherness, were well organised. If you dogged it out, you had a chance, and you
yeah.
could actually give it a real good rattle, like and no matter what talent you sort of had because it was so unique. But that's sort of gone away now, and you have this, one game every couple of weeks. It could be condensed a lot more. And listen, and there's no need for a break this weekend. Why is there a break in the National League this weekend? People are only starting to get the National Leagues back. It's the first proper National League probably post-COVID. Really, really proper National League post-COVID. Big crowds in. There was 12,000 the athletic grounds the other day. The Hyde was bouncing for Roscommon and Tyrone the first day. And then all of a sudden now, bang, there's a 2 week break. There's no need for it. There's no need for a 2 week break. Play the National League back to back, and people will love seeing their best players playing every week. Like, that's the reality.
So you think get on with the preliminary competitions before Christmas to sort out the backlog in terms of let the Siggers and have their own kind of month there in January and let them is that what you're
I
saying,
think so.
Stevie? Is
I
yeah.
think so. I think so.
Well,
You
I,
can get
I,
rid
I
of
don't like
the.
yeah, because in fairness, I suppose the preliminary competition it's a decent competition for the county squads to introduce the
Yeah,
young lads. That's when you
yeah.
get the young lads in and give them the taste, like because Go on, sorry.
You see, the problem in the pre-season competitions was, I don't know what it was like in Leinster or Connacht. I guess the FPD League, or whatever, it's the O'Byrne Cup in Leinster.
Whoever won the FPD League got a trip to New York, so we were gunning for that every year.
Is that is that right? Jeez, I didn't know that.
they
Well,
they joined
you'd be no one for young enough in that one then, innit? We're going full out. But the kind of cup, for example, it started to go through the phase of introducing the colleges to prepare the colleges for season football. And then you had the egos of the intercounty got in the way. The egos got in the way, and it became then, he's our player. He's playing for us, and I'm going to put my foot down. He's playing for me. And it became, and that, something, no end. This is the big problem. People laugh when I say, like, it's the egos of the managers that get in the way of some of these young lads developing, because there's, like, all you need is a bit of communication. Sigerson manager rings the county manager. Look, he's going to be with us this week. We're playing DCU. He'll be back with you next week, fresh. We'll keep him, blah, blah, blah. Just a bit of communication. Like Colin O'Rourke was giving out about, such and such playing and
player
the age and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you have a chance to rest that lad. You have a squad of 32 players, so why are you carrying those 32 players? I know he's important to me, but at the end of the day, if his primary competition is the Sigerson at that stage of the year and it's a knockout competition, you have 7 league games. Why not give him a rest and bring him on with 15, 20 to go than starting him? You know what I mean? So it sort of contradicts the argument because the argument that Colin had probably was a valid enough argument, but don't contradict your argument by actually playing the lad, because you're just becoming part of the problem then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there was. I don't know. Do you remember last year with Kerry? Was it Tony Brosnan and was it David Clifford as well? Played something
Then
crazy.
the same day. But again, that was Jack making his mark. I'm the manager now. It's a new regime. We're going to win in All Ireland. Nothing's going to get in our way. Paddy Tally's in, the new setup. That was make your mark as a manager. I'm in charge. And that can go one or two ways for you. It can go one or two ways for you, and lucky for Jack, it went what it went the right way.
But as you said though, who always suffers in that case? It's always the players. The players are always in the middle of it. And it's here, like as you said, well, I remember instances before where like that, 2 teams want you and the manager's kinda, well, you have to choose here, like it's your, do you know what I mean? Like, as in putting the guilt on you instead of saying, right, player burnout, player welfare, what's best for you, instead of fucking making you feel guilty for making a choice here.
Yeah. I completely agree. Listen, unfortunately, this is what we go back to, the professionalism of the sport. The paid managers, the pressure managers need results. They want their best players. Nothing's going to get in the way, and ultimately. And this sounds very, very derogatory. Players are pieces of meat. That's the reality. If you're injured, you're no use to me. If you're with your university, you're no use to me. It's here. And unfortunately, inter-county managers now sort of have a hold over players, and there's this sort of like players are nearly afraid to do anything that the inter-county manager won't, allow them to do. It becomes then nearly, very, very close to the player. Yeah.
Say it again, CV. You're what?
No, I just feel it puts a lot of pressure on the player. There's this claustrophobic feeling, real claustrophobic feeling that I'm not allowed to. If I do something here now, he'll turn against me. I'll be off the panel. And for every young fella, yourself, they're very impressionable, particularly at a young age, and they feel under pressure. A county man says do this, you have to do it. And sometimes it's what's best for the player.
Yeah. Just touching on I suppose the games at the weekend, Stevie. We'll say, just saw the Mayo Armagh game on telly. I don't know. Did you see it? Did you have a?
I seen it. Yeah, I seen it. I was in RD for the Derry game. I came home and I watched the Armagh game on TV. And listen, typical athletic grounds. Huge atmosphere. It actually was a very Mayo-esque performance from both teams. There was a bit of carnage, there was a bit of chaos, there was a bit of madness. There was missed scores, there was scores galore. There was open nets missed, it had a bit of everything, and as you know, and Mayo tend to bring that to the table, but Armagh sort of did a bit of a Mayo towards the end as well, it was sort of, it was just full press, it was full court press, it was high risk strategy. They lost the ball a couple of times, Mayo could have finished the game, but one thing, and probably the turning point for me was probably early in the second half, when Mayo got a grip on the Armagh kick out. Ethan Rafferty, I think, has been a revelation for Armagh nets. But I think when there's a major press like Donegal did last year in
Yeah,
Ballybuffet, there
yeah,
can be a little vulnerability. Now saying that, Ben Creeley, Stephen Sheridan, Kieran Mackin, all men that have played middle of the field this last couple of years are all missing for Armagh. They're big losses for Armagh. And, and then you have obviously, Stephen Campbell and Conor Mackin probably playing a bit of an auxiliary role in the middle of the field. And they're coming up against probably a very physically strong Mayo middle eight. And that probably had a big impact on the game, at that stage. Because I think there was 5 or 6 in a row where Armagh were really penned in, and Mayo
yeah.
got a foothold in the game. So for me, that was a big moment in the game. It was that probably midfield dominance.
Yeah, it's just I'm trying to obviously look at it's only 2 games in with the Kevin McStay era here, so I'm trying to kind of look at things Mayo are trying to do not differently, but I definitely think they're trying to head up first football in terms of trying to transition the ball with a kick pass a lot more. I think Kevin sees maybe Aidan O'Shea at the edge of the square a bit more. It's probably his position now at this stage, giving him a focal point. But there's a balance to that as well in terms of kicking too much into him, and obviously that balance has to be gotten right in terms of that game plan. But yeah, like that, I thought the two, yeah, once the two, and look at that, go back to this all the time, Stephen. The kick out. If you get a hold of the opposition kick out,
Yeah.
the score ratio percentage goes through the roof, like. So it drives me crazy when I see people just conceding the kick out. I just don't understand it. So like as you said yourself there, when Mayo and Armagh got a hold of that kick out, they made hay. And obviously Armagh, like they're 4 points down on 60. I think it was 67 minutes gone. They were 4 points down, and they showed really good character. And they went for it. It was good to see. And it was a real, as you said, the athletic grounds. It's a tight pitch. It was a real championship feel
Yeah.
to it. Like I suppose the Mayo Galway game, the first round, it had a real championship feel to it. Like so, as you said, it doesn't make sense. You're 2 games into the league, and now they give you a week off. Like it just, as you said, it kind of breaks the momentum a small bit.
Breaks the momentum. Like, listen, I think the league, I said on Sunday, actually, I said, like, the league's our best product, and it's our best
Yeah,
product, and like that game on Sunday, for example, Louth and Derry, you had Louth, who 2 years ago were the Division 4 team,
yeah,
who, if Derry were to meet in a championship match in Croke Park, for example, you would probably say Derry would win by double figures. And like there
yeah.
was Louth the whole game, right up until about 7, 8 minutes to go. And it was actually a mistake from the goalkeeper, and the defender collided, and the ball fell to Niall Toner, and and that just got Derry a little foothold. It got them in front for the first time in the second half. That was the
Yeah.
first time Derry led the second half, ended with about 7, 8 minutes to go. Derry struggled to get over the line, and that's probably an indictment of how competitive our league is. That was Louth get into the game without Kieran Byrne, who'd been injured the week before. Samuel Wright, probably he's still a threat. He's still a brilliant forward, but maybe not just firing on the same cylinders as he did last year. But then that's probably down to the fact that he's been well marshalled too this year, and he's a known product now, whereas last year he's probably slightly still coming in under the radar as such. Like, but listen, Derry possess a very talented individual in Shane McGuigan. Like he is a top forward, and a top forward can kick off both feet.
They kick the ball a bit more, are they?
They're not actually, and that's one thing I was going to say. I think they really do need to probably just evolve their game a little bit. I think they can. I think if Derry were to be a wee bit more direct at times, I think they could be braver and bolder. There seems to be a fascination on attacking with those real strike runners coming off the sideline. Switching the play really quickly and then trying to hurt a team coming off the sideline at pace with those. Nearly like a very very similar way to Glen play in the club game as well.
Yeah, but I don't know what your opinion on this, Stevie, but in my mind, right, just playing the game,
Yeah,
you won't hurt a team if you don't turn their half back line. If you don't
yeah.
get a hand pass over the half back line, or if you play in front of the defence, they're happy out. And if you go from side to side, it's grand. But until you get the half backs and midfielders facing their own goal, well, then you're going. In my opinion, you're going nowhere.
Well, I'm going to throw something at you.
You're not going to get that injection into your attack and really get strike runners off in the positions you want to.
Well, I'm going to throw something at you. Like, we had this conversation, actually, myself and another coach had this conversation. The amount of defenders now that are defending in training in it with like facing a slow play, right? So
Yeah,
how many teams are now setting up with their defense in? Let's be narrow, let's be
yeah,
compact, slow play, slow play, slow play. And ironically, over the weekend, a lot of the scores and major scores in games came from a direct ball. Like Derry's
yeah,
mate winning goal came from a direct ball. Okay, it was thrown into the square, caused havoc. Toner stuck in the net. Down on Saturday night when they were dead and buried, Pierce Laverty launched the ball into the square. It caused havoc. Connor Poland punched into the empty net. Mayo and Armagh put a couple of direct balls in late on, caused panic. And that's one thing that actually, I feel is coming back into the game. I think teams are starting to realise the benefit of the early long ball. Okay, you've got to accept, this is the thing. And funny, I was chatting to someone a few weeks in Donegal about this, actually, the coach education thing. I think coaches have got to accept, because the game is so statistical driven now, isn't it, right? Coaches have got to accept you're going to lose possession of the ball playing this way. You're going to give the ball away. But the risk in comparison to the reward is very low. If you get the
yeah,
ball into your forward line, it's into a full forward line and it's lost,
yeah,
the opposition are still 110 metres from goal.
yeah, yeah,
So you're
yeah,
still not in complete threat. It's not a complete threat. But if you put the ball in and you get a mark, or you got a goal scoring chance, all of a sudden the rewards are very, very maximum. And it gives you a great opportunity as well from mark to do what you like to do and just press the kick out. If you've got 15 seconds, it gives you an opportunity to get the bodies up the field and maybe push a line on, and all of a sudden you have an opposition paying in for 3 or 4 scores like Mayo, you know?
yeah. No, but no, I totally agree with you. But it's I suppose getting that. Is it a case now that players are just afraid of turning over the ball in terms of the managers on the sideline? They
100%.
look at the curly
100%.
finger.
Don't kick it
Is
away. Don't kick
that's
it
just
away.
that? Don't kick it away. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't kick it away. But there
Yeah.
has to be.
That,
Look
that,
at there has
that,
to be, as we both I think agree with. There has to be a balance to it in terms of look at, yeah, yeah, and there has to be at the right times. If you get a transition, a really quick transition, a kick out, a kick pass into the forward line, you can obviously work from there. Like you're gonna, your percentage, your chance of getting a score goes up extremely high. Like, but obviously, look at if it's a slow build up play and they have sweepers back in that scenario, you're probably not going to kick it in, is it? Am I?
no. No, like you've got to I think you've got to what happens as well, and is it's like any game. You know, you look at a game of soccer, a game of rugby, a game of Gaelic, a game of hurling, any team sport. The longer the game goes on, the more the game gets stretched, right? So
Yeah.
your kicking opportunities might be limited in the first half, but certainly in the second half when the game gets stretched a bit more, it's certainly a time to be more expressive. It's a time to be more expansive with your kicking. That's for sure. If a team sets up at a +1, no problem. Okay, bide your time, work the sweeper, occupy the sweeper, look for those kicking channels, look for those driving lanes, whatever it happens to be, whatever way you want to play. But certainly in the second half, the opportunities to kick the ball certainly become more prominent. And listen, there was opportunities, and there was so many opportunities in that game on Sunday past from both teams, both Louth and Derry, that they could have been a bit more direct. And listen, who knows, like if they had been a bit more direct, if Louth had been a bit more direct, for example. But the problem that Derry faced on Sunday past, an interesting one moving forward, is when Louth defended with so many numbers and they defended like a zonal system, it
Yeah.
sort of cut off a lot of Derry's predictable attack. That was the big worry for
Okay.
me from a Derry perspective.
And is RT a tight pitch, Stevie? Is this?
Well, you see, this is it probably I wouldn't call it, what I would probably call it, either rather than a tight pitch. I think for the time of the year, it's a slow pitch. So,
Okay.
the grass is a bit longer, it plays a bit slower. Whereas if you're playing in Crow Park, the ball's moved a lot faster with pace, and it's like any pitch this time of year, like it's going to be a slight bit slower, like, but it wouldn't have probably called it in particularly tight. It was still a decent size of a pitch. Like look, there's very few pitches. People have this misperception about the athletic grounds as well. That the athletic grounds is, a real tight pitch. From a pitch perspective, it's probably a grand pitch. It's probably the same size as
Yeah.
most pitches, but it's a tight
It's
venue
just a
and it
stance.
creates a bit of a
Yeah. Yeah.
cosmic atmosphere. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but certainly
So
certain grounds play.
sorry, Steve, when you say allow players zonal, zonal defense. What do you mean by that? What are you getting at there?
What they did, Enda, was they obviously dropped people in and tried to. They obviously suffocated the D. Okay, with a +2, they got numbers back very, very quickly. You could hear Mickey Hart's instructions to certain individuals. You know your job. You know your job. When they defended, rather than go and mark Derry's forwards wide, and rather than allow themselves to get stretched, they made the pitch very, very small and very narrow. So they nearly
So
played 15
they let
meters
the
inside
they
them.
let yeah. So they weren't
So
worried. They left. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they let Derry go wide, and they didn't get drawn out to that width. They didn't get allow themselves to get drawn out. And the few times Derry did get in behind them, and to be fair, Derry had to work very, very hard. And to be fair to Derry, I think Derry probably deserve a bit of credit too, because the way Louth were set up, was to frustrate Derry and to hit them in the counter attack. The problem was, when Louth did turn Derry over, they probably just didn't have enough on the front foot to hurt Derry. That sort of way. But one thing was interesting was the size of Louth. Big Conor Grimes full forward. There's some serious physicality and size, and they used that to their effect, particularly on kickouts as well. Like, they could have had a couple of goals from kickouts, and they went route one with kickouts. Derry squeezed right up, and Louth were very unlucky. With that sort of flick over the top and have strike runners coming on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They were unlucky a few times with that.
And how's Rory on the sideline?
Oh, hey, listen, Rory's Rory. He
He's gone, is he? Just getting to the juicy bit as well. Right, lads. I think Stevie's connection is gone there. So look, we'll leave it at that. Cheers for tuning in, and sure we'll chat to you next week. All right. Cheers, lads. Thanks.